Every producer, every director, every stunt person, every costume designer, every PA has been white.
Disney might have just walked itself to the gallows. Since last year, Disney has seen it all. They have been accused of racism towards people of color, especially Black Marvel actors and writers. But it's how these Avengers plan to unite against Disney that will surprise you. They are not leaving without putting up a fight. The first strike. They called themselves heroes. They saved the world. They saved galaxies. They were the faces that turned Marvel into a $25 billion cinematic juggernaut. But now they're walking away. Not in silence, not in the shadows. They're walking out with fire, fury, and $1 billion warning shot straight at the heart of Disney. And the most explosive part, they're calling the company they helped build racist.
I've done 7 Marvel movies now. Every producer, every director, every stunt person, every costume designer, every PA has been white. But then when you do Black Panther, you have a Black director, Black producer, you have a Black costume designer, you have a Black stunt choreographer, you have a Black, and I'm like, that's more racist than anything else.
That voice belongs to Anthony Mackie, Disney's own Black Captain. So the question is no longer, is Disney racist? The question is, how deep does it go, and who else is ready to speak? Because what you're about to see, what you're about to hear, isn't just a fluke quote or an offhand complaint. This is part of a pattern, a deeply rooted, carefully hidden culture inside Disney that's tearing the company apart from within. And the Avengers? They're done pretending. In the beginning, it was subtle, whispers on sets, rumors about who got promoted and who mysteriously got replaced. And for a while, everyone kept their heads down, because Disney was still the dream. But like any empire on the verge of collapse, the rot eventually spread too far to ignore. We'll revisit Anthony Mackie again. Not only did he speak out, he named the exact behavior. A corporate culture where diverse talent was tokenized, only brought in when the optics demanded it. When Mackie pointed out that Disney hired Black creatives only for a Black movie like Black Panther, he wasn't just raising a diversity concern. He was asking the kind of question that destroys PR campaigns.
Are you saying they're not good enough when you have a mostly white cast?
The irony? Mackie was supposed to be the future face of Disney's progressive rebranding of the MCU. Instead, he became the whistleblower. And then came the avalanche. In a separate viral interview, Marvel's own Devery Jacobs, star of Echo and What If, responded with disbelief when told a journalist questioned whether 2 Native characters needed to exist in the MCU.
I mean, would somebody go up to a white guy and say, like, this is the one perspective for a white story that there is out there? Like, would somebody go and say that? That's egregious. That's insane that anybody would say that.
Another Marvel star, publicly calling out the industry's racial double standards. And Disney, silent. But the loudest accusations were still to come, and they would arrive not from actors, but from inside the belly of the beast. Meet Michael Giordano, a senior vice president at Disney. On paper, a company man. Behind closed doors, a reluctant whistleblower. Caught on tape during an undercover operation, Giordano didn't just spill tea. He poured gasoline. He exposed how Disney actively discriminates also against white men in hiring and promotion, saying HR told him,
"Look, nobody else is going to tell you this, Mike, but they're not considering any white males for a shot. They're just not."
Another tape reveals internal attitudes toward multiracial applicants. One Black candidate was reportedly denied a promotion, not because he wasn't qualified, but because he didn't look Black enough.
We wanted to hire somebody in the department a few years ago now, who was half Black, but didn't appear half Black. And there was a creative executive who was like, that's not what's going on. They wanted somebody in meetings who would appear a certain way. And he wasn't gonna bring that to the meeting.
Disney, the house that built childhood dreams, now caught playing racial politics behind closed doors, but it doesn't stop there. According to internal documents and Giordano himself, executives are given bonuses for hiring and retaining non-white employees, regardless of merit. As long as they help hit diversity quotas, they get rewarded. This isn't just a culture problem, this is a system. And it's so blatant, the FCC launched a federal investigation into Disney and ABC for allegedly violating employment laws by making decisions based on race and gender.
And the evidence we have so far indicates potentially that Disney and ABC were making employment decisions based on race and gender, including having effectively race-defined affinity groups within the company.
Replay that again. If this proves true, Disney could lose their broadcast license. And as we know, the FCC can be ruthless, we given a reason to. So where does this leave the fans? The talent? The empire? Let's go back to the Avengers, because here's where it gets biblical. Behind the scenes, several former Marvel stars, disillusioned by Disney's treatment of race, identity, and internal politics, have reportedly been approached for a new, competing superhero universe backed by none other than Apple. Yes, Apple. And this isn't rumor. Sources close to the negotiations have reported talks of a mega deal involving multiple ex-Avengers cast members, an ambitious plan to build a Marvel competitor without Disney's politics. And honestly, Mackie's words resonated deeply with his co-stars. They had all seen it. They had all been on those sets. But it was easy to get lost in the whirlwind of production, to assume things were changing, to believe the corporate PR about their commitment to inclusion. If this was happening behind the camera, what was happening with the contracts, with the paychecks, with the opportunities afforded to their co-stars of color? And if that doesn't get you wondering, then this will. In fact, this is where the story takes a dark and disturbing turn. Through a series of back channels, aided by sympathetic agents and disgruntled former Disney executives, a packet of internal documents began to circulate among the original 6 Avengers. This wasn't gossip, it was data, spreadsheets, salary comparisons, and internal memos that painted a picture of systemic, racially biased pay disparity that was as shocking as it was undeniable. They saw what John Boyega had been trying to tell everyone for years about his experience with the Star Wars franchise, another Disney property. Boyega, who was positioned as a new lead in The Force Awakens, saw his character Finn progressively sidelined in the subsequent films. He spoke eloquently and painfully about the experience, stating, "What I would say to Disney is, do not bring out a black character, market them to be much more important in the franchise than they are, and then have them pushed to the side. It's not good. I'll say it straight up." He felt like he was the token, the diversity hire who was centered in the marketing but marginalized in the narrative. Think about that. The documents the Avengers were now looking at proved this wasn't an isolated incident. It was a business model. They saw data that allegedly showed a staggering pay gap between what their white co-stars earned for similar roles and what their Black, Latino, and Asian colleagues were offered. The number that reportedly broke them, the one that made this whole rebellion inevitable, was related to the late, great Chadwick Boseman. According to inside sources, the initial offer made to Boseman for the first Black Panther film, a movie that Disney knew would be a cultural juggernaut, was allegedly a fraction, less than a quarter, of what Chris Evans or Chris Hemsworth were paid for their first solo outings. It was a lowball offer, predicated on the racist Hollywood calculus that a Black-led film was a risk, and that a Black actor, even one as immensely talented as Boseman, didn't have the same international appeal. Of course, Boseman and his team fought back. They negotiated, they knew his worth, and the film, as we all know, went on to shatter every conceivable record and cultural milestone, grossing over $1.3 billion worldwide. But the insult of that initial offer, the corporate mindset it revealed, spoke loud. The documents the Avengers were seeing allegedly contained not just salary data, but internal memos and email chains discussing the marketability of actors of color in explicitly racial terms, weighing their value against foreign box office projections in a way that was both dehumanizing and deeply racist. They saw the receipts, they saw how the system was rigged from the start, and this was the betrayal that cut deepest. These actors had poured their souls into these roles. They had built a universe together. They had preached a message of unity, of heroism, of standing up for the little guy. And all the while, the corporation they worked for was allegedly perpetuating the very same injustices they were fighting on screen. The hypocrisy was suffocating. Disney would post black squares on Instagram and release corporate statements about their commitment to Black Lives Matter, while their own internal practices seemingly told a very, very different story. They would happily profit from the iconography of the first Black Captain America, while simultaneously, as Mackie pointed out, ensuring the people creating that story were almost all white. But the truth is, the actors who made Disney billions are now plotting to dethrone it. The faces of Captain America, Iron Man, and more, now willing to walk away, willing to burn the House of Mouse to the ground in public. And it's hard to blame them, because while Disney claims to be the face of modern inclusion, the people behind its greatest successes, the literal faces of its billion-dollar franchises, are calling out what they see as hypocrisy, tokenism, and discrimination. And the most shocking part of this story, we haven't even gotten to the lawsuit yet, because the fight is only just beginning. Why the Avengers are walking away. There are betrayals in Hollywood, and then there are mutinies. And what's happening behind the scenes at Marvel isn't just a case of talent walking away for bigger checks. This is a full-blown rebellion, one that's been brewing for years, one that's about more than just money. This is about actors who gave Disney everything, their time, their faces, their identities, only to be used, discarded, and replaced in the name of performative diversity and PR optics. It's about being told you're the future, only to find out you were just a placeholder. And now, the original Avengers, at least some of them, are reportedly uniting against against Disney, fueled by a deep sense of betrayal and backed by a tech titan with a point to prove, Apple. It started as a whisper, quiet murmurs in talent agencies, meetings that didn't happen, NDAs passed across polished tables in glass-walled offices. Apple was making moves, not just to license content, to build a universe, a superhero cinematic universe, without Disney and without Disney's baggage. The report from Forbes confirmed what had long been suspected. Apple is entering the blockbuster business with gloves off and wallet wide open. Their goal? Not just franchises, not just IP. They want Marvel's cast, without Marvel's politics. Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Anthony Mackie, even whispers of Robert Downey Jr. being approached, just to gauge interest. The offer? Reportedly upwards of $750 million for a multi-picture deal. Now, no contracts have been made public, but according to multiple sources in Hollywood, the offer is real, strategic, and deliberate. A megaton bomb aimed directly at the gates of Disney's crumbling empire. And the stars? They're listening. Why? Because of what's happening inside Disney's walls, what's being said behind closed doors, and what's now being leaked to the public. Meet Michael Giordano again, Senior Vice President at Disney, the man at the center of an undercover investigation that has become the industry's most radioactive secret. Over the course of several secretly recorded conversations, Giordano didn't just spill tea, he detonated truth bombs. Captured on tape, Giordano confessed to what critics have long accused Disney of, but could never prove.
Nobody else is going to tell you this, Mike, but they're not considering any white belts for the show.
That's not a Reddit theory. That's not a YouTube rant. That's the voice of a Disney executive, confirming that HR actively filters job candidates based on race and gender. But it gets worse. In a stunning moment, Giordano recalled a time when Disney rejected a qualified half-black candidate because he didn't look black enough.
They wanted somebody in meetings who would appear a certain way, and he wasn't gonna bring that to the meeting.
This isn't inclusion. This is racial optics, weaponized. This is Disney judging its own employees based on skin tone gradation. And if you're thinking that sounds like corporate eugenics, you're not alone.
It kind of feels like we're, at some point there's going to be a lawsuit. That's kind of how it feels, just because of,
He further said that, on camera, about the company behind Mickey Mouse. This isn't new behavior. It's a continuation of a pattern Disney spent decades and billions trying to whitewash. Let's talk history. This is the same company that featured blackface-coded characters in Dumbo, a servant centaur named Sunflower in Fantasia, and of course, the unreleased relic known as Song of the South, so steeped in racism that even Disney locked it in a vault. Yet the company profited off its characters for decades, building the now-defunct Splash Mountain on their backs, cashing in on the catchy tune Zip-a-dee-doo-dah while pretending its origin didn't exist. It wasn't until 2020, after public outcry and cultural reckoning, that they finally agreed to retheme the ride. Too little, far too late. So when Anthony Mackie stood up and said,
every producer, every director, every stunt person, every costume designer, every PA has been white.
He wasn't being divisive. He was pointing out the hypocrisy when he followed that with,
because if you only can hire the black people for the black movie, are you saying they're not good enough when you have a mostly white cast?
He was calling out segregated inclusion. And now, the actors, those who were used as shields for PR campaigns, are walking away. Why Apple? Because Apple's pitch wasn't about representation. It wasn't about hitting quotas. It was about storytelling. According to sources, Apple's promise to defecting stars is clear. No DEI checkboxes, just talent, just scripts, just freedom. In stark contrast, Disney uses code words to filter talent, according to Giordano.
I'm guessing that there's acceptable code words and buzzwords that are used to explain what they're looking for. They might say something like, look, we're not looking at like the usual suspects for this job. So it's like not like a legally actionable thing, but everybody knows what it means.
What does that mean? It means they've developed legally ambiguous language to promote or reject talent based on race, while evading lawsuits. They even keep it all tracked. Giordano mentions internal spreadsheets.
I mean, HR keeps a huge spreadsheet. Yeah.
What kind of spreadsheet?
Oh, I mean, I haven't seen it exactly, but I mean, literally, like, they have stats. 17% of our executives at this level identify as XYZ. 40% of our executives at this level identify as,
They don't even pretend it's about merit. According to Giordano, Disney incentivizes managers with bonuses, not for hiring the best candidate, but for choosing non-white hires over more qualified white men. It's so bad because part of some executives' compensation is based on hiring and retaining black hires. And honestly, this isn't inclusion. This is reverse discrimination, and it's systemic. So imagine you're Scarlett Johansson. You've given over a decade to a studio that turned your image into merchandise. And then one day your contract gets rewritten, your screen time gets cut, your character becomes a legacy footnote, replaced, recast, diversified. Or you're Anthony Mackie, thrust into the spotlight as the new Captain America, only to realize you were a diversity mascot in a machine that never intended to see you as more than a talking point. Suddenly, the Apple deal doesn't just look appealing. It looks like salvation, a clean slate, a rebellion in plain sight, a $750 million middle finger to the company that used you. Let's talk fallout. Over the past 5 years, Disney's stock has plummeted nearly 30%, while the S&P 500 climbed nearly 90%. Marvel's previous releases, The Marvels, Echo, Secret Invasion, all box office disasters, critics calling them soulless, ideological, and creatively bankrupt. Meanwhile, Apple, calm, cash-rich, controversy-free, is assembling not just characters, but cast members, entire creative teams, former VFX leads, ex-Marvel screenwriters. They're building something new, something powerful, something dangerous. And Disney? Scrambling. So what now? Recast the Avengers? Good luck. Audiences don't fall in love with mantles. They fall in love with people, with performances, with actors they trust. Disney thought it could swap out Iron Man with Ironheart, Thor with Jane Foster, Black Widow with Yelena, but they forgot a simple truth. We don't love characters because they check boxes. We love them because they mean something. And the faces that meant something are leaving. As one would say, this isn't a content war, it's a culture war. And Disney, they're losing. The actors are leaving. The stock is crashing. The lawsuits are coming. And Apple, they're building a new Marvel. Without Disney, without DI gatekeepers, and without fear. If the rumors are true, if the deals close, if the talent migrates, we may be watching something that once seemed impossible. The Avengers, reassembled to destroy Disney. But what do we know about the lawsuits Disney is currently facing? Let's find out. Disney's collapse and the lawsuits they can't outrun. The fall of an empire is never sudden. It begins in whispers, ignored. Then comes the rumble, dismissed. But eventually the cracks reach the foundation. And by the time anyone in the tower looks down, it's too late. This is Disney in 2025. An empire once synonymous with innocence, now mired in lawsuits, boycotts, collapsing box office returns, a mutiny from the very stars who built its success, and the unthinkable, a federal investigation into racial discrimination. You thought the Avengers walking away was bad? You haven't seen what's about to hit Disney's legal department. Let's go back to Michael Giordano, a senior vice president at Disney. Caught on camera by undercover journalists, Giordano confirmed what many suspected but couldn't prove, that inside Disney, being white, especially a white male, is now a liability.
Like we have so many shows where we're casting and we're like, yeah, we're not even going to see, you know, certain people for it because we need that particular role to.
Yeah. So is it intentional that they want, like, they only look for diverse candidates for certain roles?
Yeah.
And that's not hyperbole. This man, a Disney exec, says HR told him explicitly that white men were off the table for promotion, regardless of qualification. Giordano even confirmed Disney's desire for profits over anything. They'll sacrifice skill sets while hiring just to achieve it.
I think there's certainly a belief that it's just good for society and they can do it. But there's also a belief that, like, we're going to make more money if we appeal to a wider variety of people. And it's a good thing. We have shareholders too, you know. And so diversity helps with that.
This can only point to one thing. Disney's rot is irreversible. And the more Giordano spoke, the more he made sense. And the dots connect.
So is it like, do you think it's more so on that side, or are you using, like, any good crisis
I
gets
think
put to use,
Disney
or
regardless. I think the Disney
Okay.
regardless, but I think that there are, like, even conservative people who may not want to lean into it can easily make the argument that, like, we make more money when we appeal to a wider variety of people, and that means diversity.
yeah?
Wait, if you thought that this only extends to the internal management and hiring, you're wrong. Disney issue with racism has even extended to writers, and Giordano confirmed it.
There's a real focus on every show, and I'm sure the movies too, though I don't deal with that side of it. So, you know, just making sure that the writers' room has a real, you know, diversity, not just gender or sexual orientation and ethnicity. but making sure that they're hiring some writers who they have certain disabilities, but they wouldn't hire them.
But it gets worse, because this isn't diversity. This is corporate-level racial engineering. And if you're thinking that sounds illegal, you're not alone. The Federal Communications Commission, FCC, launched a full investigation into Disney's hiring practices earlier this year, citing potential violations of equal employment laws. According to the FCC, if proven, Disney's actions could strip them of their broadcast licenses. Let that sink in. If a judge agrees, Disney could lose ABC, the network, the studios, the affiliates. This isn't just about casting complaints or social media backlash. This is about the US government accusing Disney of illegal race-based hiring. Now ask yourself, what would happen if any other company admitted to doing this, with white employees as the non-preferred group? We know the answer: lawsuits, protests, congressional hearings. But because this is Disney, the media has hesitated. Until now. Because now, the evidence is overwhelming, and the timing couldn't be worse. As this scandal brews, Disney's financials are imploding. The last 5 Marvel projects have either lost money or barely broke even, including the Marvels, Ant-Man, Quantumania, and Echo. Critics have panned them as tone-deaf, ideologically bloated, and creatively bankrupt. And the fans? They've checked out. Disney's once loyal base, families, comic lovers, global audiences, have been replaced with critics, Twitter mobs, and DEI executives in marketing meetings. The result? Disney stock is down almost 30% over the past 5 years. Shareholders are furious. Boardroom battles have intensified. And Bob Iger, the once revered CEO, is reportedly fighting to keep control. Add to that the lawsuits being filed or about to be filed by insiders like Giordano and others. Add to that the SEC probes now being rumored, tied to whether Disney concealed internal discrimination practices from investors. This isn't just a bad PR cycle. This is a full-scale collapse of trust, reputation, and legal credibility. And there's one final twist. As Disney continues pushing forward with sequels, reboots, and diverse recastings, none of them are landing. Why? Because the audience can smell the cynicism. They don't care that the new character is black or gay or indigenous. They care that the story feels forced, that the characters are hollow, that every scene feels like a checklist instead of a narrative. Even the people Disney is trying to represent are pushing back. Take Debbie Jacobs, again from Echo and What If, who expressed disgust at being tokenized by journalists.
I mean, would somebody go up to a white guy and say, like, this is the one perspective for a white story that there is out there? Like, would somebody go and say that? That's egregious. That's insane that anybody would say that.
So who exactly is this DEI policy pleasing? Certainly not the actors, not the audiences, not the shareholders, not the courts, and now, not the law. Here's the bottom line. Disney forgot what business it was in. It wasn't in the business of politics. It wasn't in the business of optics. It was in the business of stories. Stories that unite people, that entertain, that endure. But somewhere along the way, the storytellers were replaced with strategists. The fans were replaced with focus groups. And the cast? They were replaced with checkboxes. Now, the very people Disney empowered to carry its message are rejecting it. The stars are walking out. The lawsuits are piling up. The government is investigating. And their rivals, especially Apple, are circling the castle, waiting for the final drawbridge to fall. This is not a controversy. This is an execution. And Disney walked itself to the gallows. If you enjoyed watching this video, check out our other awesome videos on the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
Oh, now they will. The greatest thing that could ever have happened to Marvel was having Disney buy us.
At first, the creators of Marvel's legendary characters seemed thrilled about the merger with Disney. It felt like a dream come true. But over time, that excitement faded. Now, the tone has completely shifted.
Hi, heroes. This is Stan Lee coming at you. Want you to know, Marvel has always been and always will be a reflection of the world.
The very people who gave life to these heroes are speaking out, sending a loud and clear message. Disrespect will not be tolerated. So what went wrong between Marvel's creators and the House of Mouse? The message that changed everything. Imagine if the most powerful entertainment corporation in the world was finally forced to face its own moral reckoning. It's May 2025, and what started as a grassroots rebellion by grieving families has grown into a movement that's reshaping the entire entertainment industry. These weren't just legal victories, they were declarations of independence from corporate tyranny. The thunderclap moment came when they stood up and said, "Enough!" Every major studio executive in Hollywood felt it. The creator families, armed with nothing but determination and the Copyright Act of 19 1976, had managed to make Disney, yes, the same Disney that owns ABC, ESPN, and controls almost 40% of the box office market blink. This wasn't David versus Goliath anymore. This was David assembling his own Avengers team.
It's a marriage made in heaven, and with all the power of Disney behind us, well, you see the results. You see movies like The Avengers, Iron Man, they're all tremendous hits.
So it was the luckiest thing in the world that Disney bought Marvel. The settlements of 2023 weren't just legal documents. They were surrender papers from a corporate empire that had finally been forced to acknowledge its creative foundation. When Steve Ditko's estate settled in December 2023 and the other creator estates in June 2023, they didn't just win money. They won something infinitely more valuable, the power to redefine what respect means in the entertainment industry. Let's be crystal clear about what happened here. For decades, Disney operated under a simple principle. We own what we buy, and what we own, we control absolutely. The idea that creators or their families might have ongoing rights was treated as a quaint notion from a bygone era. But these families, these real-life Avengers, proved that the principle was built on quicksand.
Kid, I'm Mickey Mouse. I can do whatever the hell I want.
Won't people think that's a lazy and desperate nostalgia-milking cash grab?
They'll think whatever I tell them to think. Want to be Dr. Doom?
Dr. Doom?
Hey, is there an echo in here or something? Yeah, Dr. Doom. I'll give you your own Avengers film. Hell, I'll even give you two.
This chilling portrayal of corporate arrogance in our source material perfectly captures the mentality that these families successfully challenged. What makes this transformation truly revolutionary is its timing. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has generated over $22.93 billion in box office revenue alone. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They represent the value of creative ideas that were once compensated at $20 per page. Imagine creating Iron Man and being told your contribution was worth the same as a pizza order in 1963. The psychological warfare these families endured was immense. Disney's strategy was obvious. Make it so painful, so expensive, so time-consuming to fight that surrender becomes preferable to justice. But they misunderstood something fundamental about creative families. These aren't venture capitalists motivated purely by profit. These are people fighting for their parents, grandparents' legacies. When Marvel sued the heirs using the work-for-hire argument, they essentially claimed that creativity has no ongoing value, that the act of imagination, of birthing cultural icons from nothing, was worth only the initial paycheck. The family's message in response was clear. Our parents created mythos that define modern culture. Their value extends far beyond what corporate America decided to pay them in the 1960s. The ripple effects are already transforming the industry landscape. Warner Brothers, seeing the writing on the wall, has reportedly begun proactive outreach to DC creator estates. Sony, facing its own Spider-Man rights challenges, is reconsidering how it treats creative legacies. Even Universal, which clutches its partial Hulk rights like a security blanket, knows that respect is now a business necessity, not a corporate nicety. The true power of this victory lies in what it symbolizes. These families essentially forced Disney to acknowledge that financial success must be shared with those who planted the seeds of that success. It's a principle that extends far beyond entertainment. In tech, in fashion, in any industry where creativity drives profit, the message is the same: respect the creator or face the consequences. Disney attempted to create a monopoly on pop culture mythology, only to be reminded that mythology belongs to the mythmakers first. What the creator families achieved goes beyond individual compensation. They've created a template for artistic justice in the corporate age. Every future creator entering Hollywood now knows they have ammunition if their legacy is disrespected. Every corporation knows that the cost of dishonoring creators' families has now been demonstrated in public, expensive litigation. The emotional impact cannot be overstated. These are children watching their parents' life work transformed into global phenomena, while being treated as legal obstacles to profit. The settlements represent more than financial resolution. They represent emotional justice for families who've carried the weight of feeling invisible in plain sight. For Marvel fans specifically, there's now a deeper emotional connection to every character on screen. Knowing that these characters' creators' families fought for recognition adds gravitas to every appearance of Iron Man, Spider-Man, or Doctor Strange. These aren't just CGI spectacles. They're the visual manifestations of a real-world battle for creative respect. The transformation in corporate culture doesn't stop at Disney's doorstep. The entire entertainment ecosystem is recalibrating. collaborating. Streaming services are reconsidering creator contracts. Production companies are building more ethical frameworks. Even theme parks are examining how they honor the artists behind their attractions. The message has been received industry-wide. As new Marvel projects continue production, each carries the DNA of this struggle. Robert Downey Jr. returning as Dr. Doom isn't just a casting decision. It's happening in a world where creator families now have a seat at the table. The power dynamics have shifted irrevocably. The ultimate irony is that by forcing Disney to respect its creative foundation, these families may have actually saved the Marvel brand's soul. Characters have deeper meaning when their creation stories include dignity and recognition. Audiences connect more powerfully when they know the architects of their myths are honored. Looking ahead, the industry faces a new paradigm. The creator families have proven that the little guy can win, that corporate giants can be held accountable, that creative justice is possible. They've transformed the entertainment industry's moral compass, one settlement at a time. This victory resonates beyond Hollywood. Every worker who's ever felt undervalued, every family that's fought for recognition, every artist who's wondered about their legacy, they all see themselves in these Marvel creator families. It's a universal story of standing up for human dignity in the face of corporate indifference. The message is clear and unmistakable. Respect is not negotiable. Creativity has eternal value, and families will fight for justice even against the most powerful corporations on Earth. The Avengers may save the world on screen, but their creators' families have saved something equally precious: the soul of artistic collaboration. This war between the Avengers and Disney isn't new. It's just the latest round in a silent battle that's been raging behind the scenes for years. The legal war behind closed doors. The battleground was set long before the public knew war had been declared. It's 2021. The MCU is riding high on Endgame's success. Disney executives are counting their billions. But in the shadows, copyright termination notices are being filed like grenades thrown into Disney's legal department. The countdown to corporate reckoning has begun, and nobody at Disney is prepared for what's coming. These weren't random families looking for a payday. These were the estates of Marvel's foundational architects, armed with a powerful weapon: the U.S. Copyright Act, the law that says after 35 years, creators can reclaim their work from corporate hands. Disney's response was swift and brutal preemptive lawsuits that screamed, "How dare you challenge our absolute ownership?" Let's talk about what really happened behind those mahogany doors. Steve Ditko, co-creator of Spider-Man and Doctor Strange; Don Heck, the artistic genius behind Iron Man and Black Widow; Gene Colan, who gave us Captain Marvel and Falcon. These names weren't just credits on old comics. They were the architects of what would become a $22 billion movie franchise. Yet Disney's legal strategy treated them like common thieves trying to steal Disney property. The psychological warfare was textbook corporate intimidation. Disney, with its virtually unlimited legal budget, structured its lawsuits to drain the estate's resources. They knew most families couldn't survive a protracted battle, but they miscalculated spectacularly. The legal arguments Disney employed were masterfully cynical. The work-for-hire doctrine was wielded like a blunt instrument. Their position: if you were paid a day rate in 1963, you forfeit all future rights forever. Period. No discussion, no acknowledgement that your creation would become worth billions, just a cold, corporate, "we paid you what we agreed." But here's what the lawsuits really revealed about Disney's corporate philosophy. In internal documents that came to light, the company's position was that these were annoyances to be eliminated through legal pressure, not creative partners to be respected, not foundation layers of their empire. Annoyances. That word alone cost Disney millions in public relations damage. The estates banded together in what became known as the Creator Coalition. They shared resources, coordinated legal strategies, and most importantly, shared emotional support. While Disney's lawyers processed these challenges as legal puzzles to solve, these families were fighting for their loved ones' legacies. The emotional stakes couldn't have been more asymmetrical. Consider the specific characters at stake. Iron Man had grossed over $8 billion in box office revenue alone. Spider-Man, with Tom Holland's portrayals, added another $6 billion to Disney's coffers, even with Sony's share. Black Widow, Hawkeye, Falcon, each represents hundreds of millions in revenue streams. Yet the families who created these icons had to fight tooth and nail just to be recognized as more than hired hands from the 1960s. The first settlement came in June 2023. Larry Lieber and the estates of Don Heck, Gene Colan, and Don Rico reached agreements with Marvel. The terms were sealed, but industry insiders suggest Disney finally realized that the cost of continued litigation exceeded the cost of fair compensation. The message was sent: challenge us, and you might just win. Steve Ditko's estate held out longer. The Spider-Man co-creators' representatives knew they held held the strongest hand. Spider-Man wasn't just another character. He was Marvel's crown jewel, especially after the Sony partnership. The psychological pressure from Disney intensified, but Ditko's estate had learned from watching DC's treatment of Superman's creators. They refused to blink. The final settlement came in December 2023. Terms undisclosed, but the joint filing mentioned amicable resolution, corporate speak for "we paid what they demanded to make this go away." Disney had been forced into a corner, continue fighting and risk setting legal precedent that could affect their entire catalog, or settle quietly and maintain the illusion of absolute control. Behind the scenes, industry lawyers report that Disney's legal teams were rattled. For decades, they'd operated under the assumption that their contracts were bulletproof. The creator lawsuits exposed vulnerabilities in a legal framework built on 1960 S-era understanding of intellectual property. The corporate machinery designed to crush opposition had encountered something it couldn't defeat: generational determination. The parallel legal battle with Interdigital Inc. over patent infringement in Marvel films demonstrates Disney's broader legal challenges. When multiple fronts open simultaneously, even Disney's vast resources become strained. The creator families were part of a larger pattern. Disney's aggressive business model was making enemies faster than it could eliminate them. What these lawsuits really uncovered was the human cost of corporate indifference. Legal documents detailed how creators worked in tiny apartments while Disney executives lived in mansions, how sketches worth billions were sold for grocery money, how the architects of modern mythology died without seeing their creations' true value. The settlements created a new legal framework for the industry. Entertainment lawyers report unprecedented interest in creator-friendly contracts following the Marvel resolutions. Studios are preemptively renegotiating old deals to avoid future lawsuits. The creator estates set a precedent that will echo through entertainment law for decades. Disney's attempt to paint these lawsuits as greedy families seeking undeserved riches backfired spectacularly. Public sentiment sided overwhelmingly with the creators' heirs. Social media campaigns highlighted the stark contrast between corporate profits and creator compensation. The narrative Disney tried to control slipped through their fingers like sand. The legal war revealed something fundamental about modern entertainment economics. The line between creator and corporation wasn't meant to be a chasm. These lawsuits forced acknowledgement that creative collaborations require ongoing respect, not just initial payment. Disney's resistance to this principle cost them far more than proactive fairness would have. As litigation dragged on, internal Disney documents suggested growing concern about brand damage. The company that built its empire on family values was publicly fighting the families of their creative foundations. The irony wasn't lost on the public. Every Spider-Man ticket sold came with questions about whether his creator's family was being fairly treated. The settlements represent more than legal resolution. They mark a turning point in corporate America's relationship with creative labor. If entertainment giants can be forced to respect creator legacies, what about tech innovators, fashion designers, software developers? The precedent stretches beyond Hollywood's borders. For the creator families, the legal journey was both vindication and ordeal. Years of stress, uncertainty, and public scrutiny took their toll, but they emerged victorious, having proven that David can indeed defeat Goliath when armed with justice and determination. Their message to future creators and heirs: your rights are worth fighting for, no matter how powerful the opposition. The closed-door negotiations that preceded the final settlements reportedly involved emotional appeals, not just financial discussions. Disney executives, perhaps for the first time, had to hear directly from families about what their loved ones' creations meant. The corporate machine was forced to confront the human hearts beating behind the balance sheets, the puppet strings of corporate control. Behind every Marvel movie, every Disney Plus series, every theme park attraction lies a shadowy world of corporate manipulation that would make any supervillain proud. The creator battles weren't isolated incidents. They were windows into a systematic approach to creative control that has redefined what it means to own art in the modern age. Welcome to Disney's real magic kingdom, where creativity is commoditized and artists become assets on a balance sheet. Let's expose the machinery. When Disney acquired Marvel in 2009, they weren't just buying characters. They were establishing a template for corporate content control that would reshape the entertainment industry. The VidAngel case from 2016 reveals this strategy perfectly. A small family-friendly streaming service trying to offer filtering technology gets crushed with a $62 million lawsuit. The message: innovation is only allowed when Disney controls it. The beauty of Disney's control mechanism lies in its multi-layered approach. First, buy the company outright. Then use legal warfare to establish dominance. Finally, reshape market expectations to their advantage. The creator families found themselves caught in this exact machinery. fighting not just for compensation, but for the very concept of creator autonomy.
I'd never heard that pretty little face. Do you moisturize?
Sometimes.
You bet your sweet ass you moisturize. There's probably all kinds of moisture on that face.
Thank you?
Gosh, Mr. Stark, you're real handsome. Shut your goddamn mouth, goofy!
This chilling exchange captures the psychological manipulation at the heart of corporate control, maintaining a friendly facade while wielding absolute power. The 2019 Fox acquisition showcases this strategy at scale. Disney didn't just buy Fox for X-Men and Fantastic Four rights. They eliminated a competitor that might have challenged their narrative control. Even the Department of Justice recognized the antitrust implications. When government regulators feel compelled to intervene, you know the power concentration has reached critical mass. But control isn't just about acquisition. It's about redefining value. Disney masterfully convinced the industry that characters created for $20 per page in 1963 had no ongoing value to their creators. That billion-dollar franchises built on these foundations owed nothing to the architects. It's economic gaslighting at corporate scale. The 2023 antitrust claims regarding streaming services expose another control mechanism. Disney wasn't content with owning content. They needed to control distribution channels. When consumers filed lawsuits alleging onerous contracts that stifled competition, U.S. District Judge Edward Davila validated these concerns. The pattern is clear. Total vertical integration equals total control. Consider the psychological warfare employed against creator families. Disney's strategy wasn't just legal, it was designed to exhaust and demoralize. By treating creative families as legal annoyances rather than valued partners, they signaled a corporate philosophy where control trumps respect. The message to future creators: your work has value, but you don't. The Redbox dispute from 2012 provides another illuminating example. Disney accused a DVD rental company of unfair competition, essentially claiming that even secondary distribution challenged their control. The pattern repeats: any business model not controlled by Disney becomes a target for elimination. What's particularly insidious about this control mechanism is its self-perpetuating nature. By buying critics, influencing media coverage, and shaping industry narratives, Disney creates an environment where challenging their control seems futile. They've convinced many that this level of corporate power is not just normal, but necessary for entertainment production.
Good work out there today, team.
Hulk smash criminals.
Shame about all those apartment blocks, though.
Hulk was preventing future crime.
This dialogue perfectly encapsulates corporate doublespeak. We're heroes for eliminating competition before it threatens us. The creator settlements forced a crack in this control apparatus. For the first time, individual artist families proved they could challenge the machine and win. This wasn't just about money. It was about breaking the psychological hold that absolute corporate control had established over creative industries. Internal documents revealed during litigation exposed Disney's true philosophy. References to creators as contracted workers rather than creative partners showed how thoroughly dehumanized the creative process had become. Artists weren't collaborators in building mythologies. They were temporary employees whose relevance ended with their paychecks. The corporate control extends beyond just financial considerations. Disney has effectively created a mythological monopoly. By controlling both Marvel and potentially DC, had the Warner Brothers deal succeeded, they would have owned the modern American pantheon. These aren't just movie franchises. They're cultural touchstones that shape generational values and understanding. The settlements revealed another layer of control: information manipulation. When terms remained undisclosed and described as amicable, Disney maintained its preferred narrative while likely paying substantial sums behind closed doors. They control not just the content, but the story of the content's creation and ownership. What makes this control mechanism particularly dangerous is its invisibility to casual observers. Audiences see beloved characters and don't question the power structures behind them. The creator lawsuits pulled back the curtain on an industry where corporate control had calcified into creative tyranny. The ripple effects of challenging this control extend beyond entertainment. When creator families proved that corporate power could be questioned and changed, they inspired similar challenges across industries. The message resonated: no corporation, regardless of size or power, is above accountability to the human beings whose creativity fuels their empires. Disney's attempt to paint these legal challenges as threats to the entertainment industry's economic model backfired spectacularly. Instead, it exposed how that model relied on creative exploitation dressed up as business necessity. The settlements forced acknowledgement that sustainable success requires respecting, not erasing, creative origins. The control apparatus Disney built was designed to be impenetrable. Contracts so complex complex, they intimidated challenge. Legal resources so vast, they outmatched opposition. PR machinery so powerful, it shaped public perception. Yet the creator families found the weak point, the court of public opinion and the principle of creative justice. Disney used to control creative output. We see a cautionary tale about corporate power in the creative industries. The settlements don't just represent legal victories. They represent the beginning of a recalibration where control shifts from absolute corporate power to balanced creative partnerships. Future creators and their families now understand that these strings can be cut, that the puppet can fight back. Disney's empire isn't built on contracts alone. It's built on creative minds that deserve recognition beyond their initial compensation. The creator battles proved that even Disney's sophisticated control system has vulnerabilities when faced with determined opposition and public scrutiny. In the end, the war between the Avengers and Disney wasn't just a legal battle. It was a powerful stand against a system that often treats creativity like a commodity. For years, Disney built its empire on the backs of beloved characters, unforgettable stories, and the brilliance of the people behind them. But when those same people asked for fairness, for recognition, for a piece of what they helped build, they were met with silence, red tape, and closed doors. What started as private negotiations turned into a public reckoning. The Avengers, both on screen and behind the scenes, became symbols of resistance, not to storytelling, but to the corporate machine that tried to control it. Families of creators, lawyers, and even actors stepped up, not just for money, but for legacy, for the right to say, this was ours too. And now, the ripple effects are impossible to ignore. Disney, once seen as untouchable, has had to face real questions about ownership, ethics, and the future of entertainment. Will this lead to a new era where creators have more power? Or will the mouse behind the curtain find new ways to tighten its grip? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure. The Avengers may have saved the universe on screen, but off-screen, they just might have saved the soul of Hollywood. What are your thoughts on the Avengers taking a stand against Disney? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more untold truths from behind the scenes, click on the cards on screen now.